Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those within the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Insights, where we'll be talking about some important studies going on in the Great Lakes through a new partnership. Joining me right now is Stephanie Gundula, Resource Protection Coordinator with the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Stephanie, as always, great to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, pretty exciting stuff on Wednesday when that cruise ship rolled on. What was that all about?
It was so exciting to see such an expedition ship, really, out there in Thunder Bay. So they brought in nearly 400 passengers to experience what we have to offer here in Alpena and Northeast Michigan. They went on a number of different excursions, but most of them did spend their time at the Sanctuary Visitor Center, where they got a guided tour of the exhibits and got to go out on the glass bottom boat, right back out into Shipwreck Alley. But instead of on the Octantis, this time they got to see some shipwrecks through the glass bottom.
Beautiful. Yeah, one of the passengers I spoke with that day actually said they had no idea it was Shipwreck Alley. I mean, they were from California, so I guess you can kind of understand that. But how cool is it that we can share our area with people from all across the country and the world even?
For sure. There were so many people. I love to ask them where they're coming from, and I think they hit almost every single state in the union. They were from, like you said, as far away as California, New Jersey, Florida, South Carolina, and most of them had never even been in Michigan. And this is one of just a few port stops really here in Alpena, and a number of them also told me that this was their favorite stop so far.
Oh, excellent. That's good news. Yeah, they said they love the small town feel, and I think they had dinner at Mango's actually that day. Yes. But also aboard, we have some pretty important scientists that are doing some great work and studies partnering up with NOAA. So tell us about that partnership.
That's right. This is part of a contracted agreement that was sealed in January of 2020. And so this is a NOAA and Viking partnership. And NOAA, of course, is conducting science all across the country, all across the world, really, but all across the Great Lakes. Of course, there's our national marine sanctuaries focusing on maritime heritage, resources and science, but also climate science and weather science and ecosystem studies. And so this partnership is really going to give NOAA a much better and regular increased access to Great Lakes threats and issues.
Yeah, and right before we started this little interview, you were mentioning also studies being done on microplastics. Can you tell us about that as well?
Yes, for sure. And that's just one of the, if you will, real-time science activities that are happening on board. And so not only are there scientists on board studying these topics, the passengers get to participate as citizen scientists in the studies. And we had one guest who, after seeing our marine debris exhibit at the Heritage Center, was so excited to share that the very next day she was going to be participating in the microplastics sampling as they sailed from Alpena to Mackinac. After we talked about what the students and the youth here in our area do, we're used to hearing about them studying for microplastics and studying water quality, but that she was so impressed with what our youth, what they're exposed to here and how they are participating and contributing to this real science.
For sure. And yeah, microplastics, not a lot of people talk about microplastic. Can you tell us the issue with microplastics and how dangerous they are
Yes,
for the environment and our Great Lakes?
Certainly. So what I've learned in the past few years studying microplastics myself is that it's found in higher concentrations in the Great Lakes compared to our ocean. And what microplastic is just anything made of plastic never goes away. It breaks down, it breaks down, it breaks down into microscopic particles. Those microscopic particles can get anywhere, and of course into our water systems, of course into us, into the fish we eat. And where they come from is a lot of single-use, like I said, anything plastic, but those really abundant single-use plastics that you see everywhere. Single-use plastic bags, plastic bottles that are so have become such a part of our society, but they're also very easy to not use, and then we're not contributing to that problem of microplastics in the Great Lakes. Those microplastics also are toxins in the water, adhere more to them than they do to the water molecules, so that's where even more of a danger come with those microplastics. You've seen the stories, fish can eat them, and it can harm them that way as well. But it's a pretty big issue, but one we can really work to solve by not using single-use plastics.
All right, Stephanie. So what excites you most about this partnership with NOAA and Viking Expedition?
What's really exciting, I think, is we're part of a pretty amazing group across the planet. Viking has partnered with just a couple top-notch scientific institutions, Cornell and University of Cambridge, and then NOAA. So we're really proud of that affiliation, and that's exciting. This is also going to give us, as NOAA scientists across the Great Lakes, access to some advanced technologies that we might not have access to, and definitely exposure. We have a ready-made audience every single time these expedition ships come through to, of course, share the beautiful area we live in, share the beauty of visiting Alpena and Northeast Michigan, but also share the science that we're conducting in the Great Lakes and ways to engage people in protecting not only the Great Lakes, but protecting our ocean planet as well.
Stephanie, as always, thank you so much for coming in and giving us a little better idea of what we can expect from this partnership. And don't go away, because coming up next, we will be talking to a scientist where we'll be delving a little deeper about the operations they'll be performing on the Great Lakes.
Insights will return after these messages.
Joining me now is Steve Ruberg. Steve, thanks a lot for hopping on. Tell us about what's going to be going on with these scientists that were dropped off today in the harbor of Alpena.
Well, what's happening today is that Viking Cruise Lines has arrived, their first trip of the year in Alpena. They are getting a tour of the marine sanctuary here in Alpena.
Yeah, and I know there's some scientists aboard, so you guys are going to be working together. Tell us about that research and what you guys will be doing together.
Well, what's happening is that Viking Cruise Lines in this situation, the vessels that they're bringing into the Great Lakes are, their whole idea is that they're expedition cruises, and they want to come into a region such as the Great Lakes. This vessel is coming from Antarctica, and they want to get a handle on the geography, the biology, the chemistry, the physics of what's going on. So the waves, the currents, and the zooplankton and the fish and things like that are out there. And at NOAA's Great Lakes Environmental Research Lab, that's what we do. We really focus on trying to understand ecosystems in the Great Lakes.
And so what kind of tools do you guys use to research those kinds of things?
Well, what's really good about these Viking cruises is that they're on a weekly basis moving along the axis of the lake, so going from south to north or east to west, that sort of thing, depending on what lake you're on. And since they're doing that on a weekly basis, you get a snapshot. So as they're moving along, they're actually sampling through what we call a flow-through system that we've helped them set up. And so we're getting really good data that's giving us that we maybe couldn't get normally, because they're there so often, and they're getting data over these long transects.
And so, Steve, tell me about just how important it is that we collect all this data, and what's it going to mean for our understanding of our Great Lakes in the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it's gone past many people that things are changing. Winter seems to be getting shorter. There are some climate changes that are affecting the Great Lakes. So with that additional warming, less ice may have an impact on certain fish species and things like that. So we want that the data that we're able to work with Viking, the data that they're collecting, we want to use that to pick up these trends.
And what can you tell me about the current state of water levels in the Great Lakes? I know it was a concern about, they were a little low recently. So
yeah, and the water levels are heading down. Good thing for marinas and folks like that. But that's all tied to really regional climate, global climate. Are we getting a lot of rainfall and not much evaporation? Those are the two primary ways that the lakes go up and down. And right now we're in this period of less rainfall, and so we're seeing some lower lake levels.
For sure. And so you mentioned zooplankton is something you guys are also researching. Can you tell us about the other wildlife you guys are taking a look at, or will be taking a look at?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're looking at with some of the systems on the boat. We'll be able to really not necessarily so much on the phytoplankton, fish, and zooplankton, but really the chemistry of the Great Lakes. How is that changing? We do, and other agencies in the Great Lakes do a really great job of understanding the fish and that sort of thing. But this is a really good opportunity to get a handle on things like the chemistry and how that's changing in the Great Lakes.
Is there anything you can tell us about anything you've been observing lately, maybe in the past year? Anything of concern at all, or?
Well, I mean, these things are always changing. Really, the biggest thing that is changing is that we're getting less ice cover in the wintertime. So.
Gotcha. Is there anything we can do about that?
Well, I mean, I think communities will have to adapt. I mean, for instance, ice fishermen aren't going to be able to. That ice fishing season isn't going to be as long, we're really looking at this as is that reduced ice cover. Is it having an impact on certain fish species that spawn under ice?
Are there any specific species that you guys are focusing on more than others?
There's a whitefish. There's a fish called a bloater that I think some people will be familiar with. Herring, those kinds of fishes that we're really kind of focused on at this point in time. So.
And is there a specific reason why? Are their populations dwindling at all, or?
Yeah, they have been declining. With there have been since the onset of invasive mussels. There are certain amphipods in the bottom of the lake that have declined, and so those types of fish, whitefish in that whitefish family, that have declined as well.
Yeah, and in past interviews I've done with other researchers like yourself, they basically point out that when an invasive species comes, it's pretty difficult to get them out.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, the mussels are here to stay. There are some species of fish that are adapting and learning to eat them and that sort of thing. So, biology works that way. The fish will adapt and things will change, and hopefully we get beyond this and some of our native species will come back.
All right, so we covered the animals. Do you guys look at plant life at all as well?
Well, we do look at the phytoplankton in the lakes. But one thing I did want to mention is that one of the components in the future that the Viking cruises will help us with is mapping, and so they're going to have a system on there that actually is acoustically can kind of take a picture of the bottom of the lake, the very bottom of it, and that tells us about the geology of the lake bottom, and it tells us about the potential for fish habitat and things like that. And the geology is of interest to me in particular because I've been doing this work with these offshore karst systems or sinkholes that are actually out in Lake Huron on the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, and you said take a picture. Does that? Are you talking about sonar technology?
It is a sonar technology that is able to create a map, or almost like in some cases, the way they're doing it, since it's a sort of a down-focused acoustic energy, you'll get something that looks a lot like an image or a picture.
Beautiful. Is this pretty recent technology, or is this something we've had for a while?
It is something that's been around for a while, but the systems just keep getting better and better and higher resolution and giving us a much better understanding of what that geology on the bottom of the lake is looking like.
Before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd want us to know about the upcoming research?
Well, we're looking forward to this, again, as a NOAA laboratory, as a way to communicate what we're doing to these folks who are on these cruises who are very interested in science. It helps us help them understand what's happening in these systems, these big freshwater systems, the Great Lakes.
All right, looking forward to seeing all this data come in and all the development, Steve. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Insights will return after these messages.
Welcome back, everyone. Joining me now is Jeff Gray, Superintendent of the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Jeff, thanks a lot for coming on.
Oh, good morning. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. And so we're here to talk about, obviously, the partnership between NOAA and Expedition Viking Cruises. Tell me what you know about it, or just tell us about the partnership.
Well, it's amazing. I tell you, we're really excited about it. You know, what it means for this community, what it means for Northeast Michigan, but what it means for the Great Lakes in general. And there's really two different types of relationship we have with the expeditions that are traveling through the Great Lakes. And one is a shore stop where the ships next year will be stopping in port and coming and exploring a great town. That's one super exciting aspect of it. The other is the science, where these ships are cut out to be really the cutting edge science ships in the world. And they're spending the summer in the Great Lakes, and we've been able to partner with them and try to help guide that science and use that science to better protect the Great Lakes and the rich history that lies below them.
Absolutely, and obviously you guys have NOAA scientists here already, so what is this edition with what they're bringing going to mean for all of this study?
Yeah, you know, I think one recognition, Viking is an international company. They do research in the poles. I mean, they do research in the most extreme environments. This ship is that ship. It is equipped with literally every tool you could imagine, and if a new tool is needed, they get it. And so that company is investing deeply into this ship. And again, part of it is to provide experience for the passengers, but the other part of it is they want to conduct real science. And NOAA, beyond the sanctuary here, is partnering with them to help collect that data and make sure the data gets managed. It's a long-term relationship. It won't just be for this 1 or 2 summers. And so this relationship will evolve, and we'll just keep getting better data and better research done.
For sure, and the significant thing is that they're conducting all this research as they're going along on the cruise. So tell us the importance of that.
Yeah, it's, you know, data is, one data point isn't great, but when you have data over time, that's super important. That's when you can see how things are changing. And so we're not only going to get data from the ship over time, but as it crosses the Great Lakes back and forth from season to season, it's really going to be an amazing collection of data. Overall data from everything from climate change to invasive species, but also to some of the stuff we're super concerned with, the shipwrecks, the sinkholes, the things we're doing here in the sanctuary. And I think it's important to think about their overall mission is what they can do for the Great Lakes, but they're also super interested in Northeast Michigan, the sanctuary, and the research we're doing there. And that's great for us because we're excited. The work that we'll do won't just be for the science and sharing with the scientists, but hopefully we'll be able to turn that into education materials for students in Northeast Michigan, promotion materials that show people how spectacular Northeast Michigan is. So it's really firing on all cylinders for the stuff the sanctuary is involved in.
For sure, and right before we came back from break, I was talking to Steve, and he was just absolutely great, telling us what tools are available and how much research they're going to be able to do. What are some of the biggest things you guys are looking to study? He mentioned invasive species and ice cover. What can you add to that?
Yeah, you know, and you mentioned Steve, who's a great partner of ours, and I think that's a kind of an intangible thing that Viking is going to bring with that ship here. It's going to attract other scientists to come here and do work not just with Viking, but do work other times of the year. And so we'll see more and more people discovering what we have up here, and hopefully more and more people exploring this area. I mentioned the technology that they have, ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, mapping technology. They even have some submarines on the vessel that they can't quite use now, but in the future they will. And it's going to allow us to look at things in ways that we haven't been able to see things before, from the sinkholes that rest there to our deep water shipwrecks. And so we're super excited. And I hate to use the tip of the iceberg when we're talking about a ship, but we're just seeing what we're going to be able to do with that ship as it's maiden voyages right now. Just left a few days ago. We'll be back 2 days on Tuesday. It's coming back here for another stop. So we're going to see a great evolution of the work that it's doing here.
Yeah, and that was something I failed to bring up to Steve was the submarine. Can you tell us a little more about what that's going to be all about? Is it for the cruise passengers, or will it be mainly used for science, or both?
There's some complexities that would be tough for us to get into with some certain laws that govern foreign flags in U.S. waters, where the submarines can't be used at this point in U.S. waters, but they are used in Antarctica when they're doing the work in the poles to do some. They discovered a new species when they were down in the poles recently, so hopefully that's going to get worked out in the coming years. I do believe it will be a passenger experience, but it'll also be an experience where scientists can get aboard the submarine and do work, and it can go as deep as Lake Huron gets. So we'll be able to get some great data once that comes live. But
Yeah, and you mentioned this is not just one or two summer things, this is a long partnership. How long has this been in the works?
We first met with Viking about 2 years ago, and that was on the science end of this, where they were bringing the ship in. Again, it was built to go to Antarctica, and then in the off season, they decided to bring it to the Great Lakes, and they found just what incredible interest there were from their passengers to go on the vessel. And when you think about it, those passengers are paying for the science to get done. Like, they're subsidizing the science. It is real science. They're not just demonstrating science to the passengers. For example, like, this is how we do research. They're actually doing independent research that the passengers are interacting with. So it's a real research ship. And so about 2 years ago, we started meeting with them, and then just within the last couple months with them as the shore stop. So, yeah.
Beautiful. And yeah, so you mentioned as we get this kind of going more, it's going to attract more scientists to the area. What's that going to mean for the Great Lakes?
Yeah, the sanctuary, we've been super lucky. 22 years now we've been working here, and we've had Bob Ballard come here, the guy that found the Titanic. Jean-Michel Cousteau, Jacques Cousteau's son, has come here to do research. A team from Germany, we get research from around the world that come here. And the more that we can make people aware of the incredible resources here, the more that we can make it easy for people to do research here, the more will come. And I think we've seen a snowball effect over time, where we get more and more people coming, more and more PhD students doing the work here. And again, it's not just research for research's sake. It's to help protect the Great Lakes so our grandkids can enjoy it the same way we do today, but also trying to turn that research into things that our visitors can interact with at the visitor center, things we can bring to the classroom. And that's what the exciting part of this to me is, that we're doing great science, but we're finding new ways to share it with the public.
Excellent. And it looks like we're running out of time here, Jeff. So is there anything else you want to let everybody know about this beautiful park?
We're super excited. I know when people go out to the breakwall on Tuesday, it's hard to believe just 2 days away. Come out to the breakaway, see these passengers, wave to them. They'll be here 7 more times this year, and we're hoping there'll be many, many more stops next year.
Beautiful. All right, Jeff, thanks so much for stopping in.
Thank you. I'll be back soon.
All right, sounds good to me, sounds good to me. And I want to thank all of our guests for coming in and giving us a better idea of what studies are being done on our Great Lakes. That's all we have for you in this edition of Insights. Have a great day.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or story ideas, please email news@wbkb11.com. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.